What did we learn last week?
We did more work on the back end for chat and we made the edit function.
We did. So we started working on, we finished up chat, right? And then we started work on our blog project. And then your homework over the weekend was to get that delete button working, right? How do we work full stack? Hopefully some of this is starting to click, going all the way back to Ryan's week of, hey, we used an API, we used the New York Times, now we're using that kind of same functionality, right, with the fetch and the methods and the headers and the content type and all of that kind of information, and start integrating all of that in. What else did we learn? Do we have any questions? Do we have anything that we want to review before we get in? Do we have any questions that popped up? Just ready to dive on in? Ready to keep going on the back end? Are you talking to us, Jennifer?
Yeah, I'm just looking over my code for a minute to see if I do have questions.
Good idea for everyone to review. I'm just pulling up the code that we are working towards so I have something to reference, and then we can dive on in for tonight. I did make a mistake over the weekend. I was trying to get our code set up in GitHub so that you guys can access it instead of having me post it in the live stream in Slack all the time. And I completely deleted my entire blog front end. So I believe I am caught up to where we left off, but if there are discrepancies between my code and the code that you are copying over, feel free to let me know. We are actually going to kick off the evening with fixing an issue in Beekeeper before we dive into getting our code set up. So I had you guys install the wrong edition of Beekeeper. And so if I share my screen, and I head into my copy of Beekeeper, you will get this very nasty message that says valid license required. Am I sharing the right monitor? Can you guys see Beekeeper? Okay, cool. So we're going to fix this before we dive into any of our code tonight. What we're going to do is if you pop open Beekeeper, everyone should probably be getting this message. What we're going to do is we're going to hit the download community edition button. So go ahead and hit that. That's going to pop open Chrome and take you to this very long list of websites in GitHub. All of you guys should be on the ARM64 Mac. That is the Apple Silicon processor. If you are on some other computer, it is possible that you need another version of these, but because all of you guys have M1 or M2 chips in the laptops that we provide you, most of you guys should just need this armmac.zip package. So go ahead and click on that very top option, and that will just take a minute to download. Once it is downloading, you can go ahead and click on that .zip file, and that will pop open the downloads folder with this version of Beekeeper in it. I'm going to give everyone just a minute there because everyone's download speeds might be a little different. So once the download is complete, you can click on the .zip file or go to your downloads folder and click on the .zip. And then once you have that zip opened up, it should say Beekeeper Studio. So I'll just give everyone a minute there depending on internet connection. So don't want anyone to get behind. Anyone need another minute or are you guys good? Good? Okay. Once you get this Beekeeper Studio in your downloads folder, do not double click on it. Do not open it. What we need to do is take it and drag it into our applications folder. But we're not done there. Once we get it in our applications folder, we want to go down and delete out Beekeeper Studio Ultimate. We don't want that Ultimate edition. There aren't a ton of features that we need in there anyway. Everything that we need is in that free community edition. So if you single click on Beekeeper Ultimate, you can 2-finger tap to right click, or you can single click on it and hit Command Delete. And it's going to yell at me because it's already open. Okay, well, I'm going here. I'm going to quit out of it. And now I can Command Delete it and get rid of it. That means that I should be able to pop open Beekeeper Studio here and hit the open button. And once that opens up, we should have Beekeeper, and you'll see that there's this now a message in there that says you can upgrade to the full version. We don't need to do that. If we just double click in our local DB, we should be back in business and have access to the blog database that we set up. Does anyone need help with Beekeeper?
I just got on, so
Yep. What
If-
we did is if you open the version of Beekeeper that we have, Exona, it will say that like the license is expired or the trial is expired. All you need to do is click the download community edition button on there. Pick
Okay.
this top one, download that. That will go into a zip file in your downloads. Just click on the zip to open it. Then you'll get this thing called Beekeeper Studio. Drag that into your applications folder from your downloads folder, and then delete out the one called Beekeeper Studio Ultimate.
okay, so you want me to download the first one, the Beekeeper Studio 3.8 ARMS? Okay,
Yes, that's it.
all right, perfect, thank you.
Anyone else need help? Everyone have access to the Beekeeper that we know and love, have their blog database. We're all good?
So mine just downloaded and it said Beekeeper Studio 2, and I did the same thing and it's fine. Is that good?
That's fine. As long once you get it into your applications folder, you may want to rename it so it doesn't have the 2 at the end of it.
Okay.
But that shouldn't cause any issues.
Okay, thanks.
Artrell, what's up?
All right, so I clicked open Beekeeper and it says, free trial over yada yada, but where do I click on it to do the update?
There should be a button underneath that message that says download community edition. If you don't have it, I will post the link in the live stream channel in Zoom, Slack and in Zoom.
Yeah, because mine says either buy a license or enter license. That's it.
Okay, so instead go to either the Zoom chat or the Slack live stream channel, and I posted the link right in there.
Okay. Cool. So I'm gonna do that. And then the ARM 64.
Yep, the top one there.
All right, that's downloading. All right, and
Once it
still
downloads,
says Beekeeper Studio, right?
yep. You're going to pop open the .zip file. That will give you the application in your downloads. You can then take it from downloads and drag it into your applications folder.
Okay, I just did that.
And then go to your applications folder, find Beekeeper Studio Ultimate, and go ahead and move that to the trash. We don't want the Ultimate Edition.
Okay. Where is my trash? I don't even know where my trash is.
Bottom right of the dock, right down here.
Wait, hold on. Say that again. Ah, okay. So ultimate gets moved to the trash.
It yells at you and says it's open. Just go to it in the dock and click on it, and then hit Command Q.
Okay, so I'm over to it. Command Q. All right. And then try it again. All right, that's deleted. So now I just have the regular Beekeeper Studio. Now open that.
Yep, and you'll be all caught up and good to go. Anyone else need help? Xona, you were able to catch up? Cool. Got Beekeeper, we're good to go. Beekeeper will be a very important tool to debug from now on. Okay. So what we are setting out to do tonight, believe it or not, you only have a week and 1 day left with me. So all of this week, and then we are off next Monday for President's Day. And then you've got me on Tuesday, and then Nathan comes in from there. We've got Nathan for a week and a half on DevOps. Then you have Laura's career module, and then our final week, which is all focused on capstones and presentations and all of that kind of stuff. We do have a capstone check-in scheduled for next Tuesday. Sorry, not tomorrow, next Tuesday. That capstone check-in is going to be all about starting to integrate your back end. And so this is going to kind of come on you guys fast and furious for all the back-end concepts that we're learning in the blog, right? So we're not only going to be learning CRUD, create, read, update, delete. We already got our create working. Tonight, we're going to focus on our read, our update, our delete. We're going to get all of those working. And then we're going to move into authentication and comments. How do we update our database? How do we relate data together? How can we tie the authentication in? We're going to learn about password hashing. We're going to learn about how to store that encrypted password in the database. And we're going to learn all about sessions and how to validate that user. So a lot of stuff headed your way for the blog. We're going to get more practice with the with Sequelize as well. And then the capstone check-in between now and next Tuesday, it's all about getting something full stack working in your project. There will be some students who just get a login system working, and that's enough, right? All we want to see is one piece of full stack, so that when you go to an employer, you can say, hey, this is a full stack project. I've got a backend. I understand how an API works. I know how to build one. I know what a REST API is, all of that stuff. It is up to you guys. Some of you guys will have a very basic, hey, I just have a create and a read going on in my database, and that's full stack. That's all I need. Or you guys may say, hey, I've got a lot of different content types to update here. I need to take care of images. I want to be able to support multiple users. It's kind of up to you to decide how much backend you really want in your capstone. The only requirement for next Tuesday is going to be that you have some kind of backend working. You have something in the database, you have some API endpoint, and you have some fetch going on in the front end. After tonight's class, you're going to see a little bit more how we have a full CRUD flow going on in our app. That's what we're gonna, that's a great starting point. Or you may say, I'm going to wait a day or two. I'm going to learn how to do the user authentication, and maybe user authentication is what I decide. That's what I want to integrate into my capstone. So you got flexibility there. It's up to you how much backend you really want to integrate into your capstone. But the blog project that we're working on this week will hopefully give you guys some ideas. Now, if you get to Wednesday or Thursday and you're like, I've got no clue how to get a backend working in my capstone, that's when you should schedule a one-on-one. This is a very typical time for my one-on-ones to about double or triple. coming up to the final week, you guys will be fighting over spots. And I'm not kidding. There are people who are like dashing to my Calendly and yelling at me because someone else stole the appointment as they were trying to book. So it doesn't feel like it now, but over the next couple days, we're going to have a lot of quick light bulb moments. And it's going to be all about saying, hey, when I get to the end of class, before I sign off for the night, let me think about the concepts that we just learned. How do we integrate them into your capstone? And the answer may be we can't, but there are going to be several different real life examples that we're doing in class that you should be able to directly translate into your code. I will also be posting the code at the end of every night in a GitHub link. I think did I share that? I did share that. So I will post this in the live stream channel. That is where all of our code will be, and all of our code up until this point is already stored in there. So if you're looking to reference some code that we did in class, instead of having to scroll all the way back up in the live stream, I have the entire copy of the My Code folder on my desktop in that repository. So hopefully that makes it a little bit easier for you guys to find anything that we worked on in class as an example. Do we have any questions about capstones or where we're headed? Nathan will be coming in next Wednesday, and you've got him for a week and a half, and he's going to be covering how do we take our full stack application and deploy it to AWS, Amazon Web Services, which is the largest online cloud. Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud Platform are two direct competitors to AWS. AWS is certainly the biggest one. And so you guys know how to deploy a static front end, right? You guys know how to take some HTML and get it up on GitHub pages, do some DNS, get your domain linked. But there's a whole nother layer of complexity when we have our database and our API that we also need to deploy. So Nathan will be coming in and focusing in on, hey, how do I take the other half of my code, get that uploaded, and actually get it out on the internet? All right, we ready to dive into our code? Okay, so I am starting at week 19, day 4. Believe it or not, we are in week 20. We are right around the corner. I lied. We're going to take our week 19, day 3. Our day 4 was open hack, so that's why we don't have a day 4. I'm going to go into my blog backend, and I'm going to delete out my node modules. I'm also going to go to my blog front end and delete out my node modules. Once I have the node modules deleted, I'm not sharing my screen. Sorry. Once we have the node modules deleted out of the week 19, day 3, both the back end and the front end, I can go to my day 3 folder and hit Command C to copy that whole thing. I'm going to go up to my files and create my week 20. I'm going to go into that week 20 and hit Command V. Apparently I'm not. Did I not copy day 3 right? There we go. My day 3 should be in there, but of course we are in day 1. So I'm going to rename that. A little quick tip for you guys. If you have the file selected, you can actually hit enter on your keyboard, and that brings you to the rename without having to right click and go down to the rename function. Once you get that renamed, we're going to go ahead and pop open that in our VS Code, both the front end and back end. Hopefully this is starting to feel a little bit more natural for you guys. I will say that in a real life project, you are not going to be rolling into work and making a copy of your files every day, right? You would be using Git a little bit more regularly, and we're actually going to start using Git at the end of class as well, to start practicing checking in our files, having them in a repository, because that's really important for your portfolio. To be able to say, hey, I've got my GitHub account here. You guys can go see this code that we've worked on. So we will be doing that towards the end of class. If not tonight, we will start doing that tomorrow. Okay, once I've got that in my VS Code, I'm going to right click on my package.json in my front end and open
Sharing
an
the wrong
integrated.
screen, Max.
What's that?
I think you're sharing the wrong screen.
Oh. Thank you. Oh, Zoom is killing me. Where? Stop share. There we go. Okay. Right screen now? No, it keep desktop to share. Okay, now I think it's the right screen, even though it put my screen share in the different spot. You guys have blog front end and see my terminal down at the bottom? Okay. Thanks for the heads up there. Right click on the package JSON, open an integrated terminal, and we're going to do our npm install. Remember, we only need to do our install because we deleted our node modules. So whenever you clone or whenever you download someone else's project, it's very typical for them not to include their node modules folder because that's usually a pretty big folder. If you don't have your node modules, open it in package JSON, right click, open an integrated terminal, npm install, and then we also need to do that on our backend. So we're going to right click, open in integrated terminal, and we're going to do our npm install in the backend. And then traditionally, it's better to get your backend started before you get your front end started. So you can do your npm start in your backend. Going to give that a second. And we got a bunch of SQL printing out here, but right above that SQL, you should see connected to DB successfully. We're going to switch back over to our front end and do our npm start there. That should, in a second, bring up our homepage with our blog, and we should be good to go. I'm going to pause there just in case anyone needs help. And start a poll just to make sure everyone's caught up. Don't know what's up.
Do we have to install anything? Sorry, I wasn't.
In both the front end and back end, before you do your npm start, just run the command npm install, and that will get everything installed for you.
Okay. Right.
I do need help, Max.
Yep. If I can find my stop share button, go ahead, share your screen.
Hold on. This is in the way. Okay, so I don't know where you got the file from. I had a coughing fit, so I got up and grabbed some water. And then when I came back, you whizzed ahead of me.
We took the files from week 19, day 3.
Okay. Patrick's telling me week 18, day 2. I knew that was not it.
Week 19, day 3. And I will also post a zip of my copy of that just in case you don't have a week 19, day 3 or fell behind last week. I'm going to post a zip into the live stream channel right now.
Okay. All right, word. And then, so now that I know that, I got it from there.
And I realized I forgot to start a live share for both of those, so I will get that kicked off right now. Jennifer, it is npm install first because we need to get our node modules generated. We do that both in the front end and the back end. And then it is npm start, but we want to start our back end before we start our front end. That's generally best practice. You're muted if you're talking to us.
Spacebar wasn't working. Should I just close out my front end and start over?
No,
So that
you
we
should
can
be
stop.
you should be able to just do your npm start in your front end, or npm install and then npm start.
It won't mess anything up if I do the front end first, because I already did.
Nope, that's fine.
Thanks.
The order of the install doesn't really matter. It's the order of the start. But in this case, because we haven't done the read operation in our database in the blog, we haven't, it's not a big deal, the order that we started in. If you do start your front end before your back end, sometimes you'll get an error message in the console or some error in React. All you need to do is refresh that in the browser, and that should fix the issue once you get your back end up and running. Artrell, what's up?
All right, I had to like fix folders. So, all right, now I have front end in one window and back end in another window. Okay, let's take it from here.
Open an integrated terminal
In both?
in both.
All right, and you said it doesn't matter today which one we do it in?
Well, you need to do
The
it
order.
in both.
I mean, the
But
order.
the order, back end is preferred, but not super important.
All right, so I'll do it in the back. That's the one that's open right now. So
That is an npm install.
npm install. That's
Yep.
it for now. Okay.
And then once the install is done, npm start, and then rinse and repeat.
Mine says cannot find Jordy database.
Of course it does. Share your screen.
I'm just being a jerk. It doesn't say anything.
That was such a Ryan thing to do.
It was an RC thing.
And we were really, really close to needing Ryan to fix Jordan's database issues. I was almost at the point of being like, screw it, calling in Ryan, he can fix it. Anyone need help? Now's the time to ask for it, because there are lots of things. This is very important to follow along, not just tonight, but for until the end of class, right? Because lots of concepts here that are kind of flying your way. And sometimes you don't know it until you try to do it, right? You try to use it. So hopefully at this point, you're either taking very judicious notes or you are following along with us.
So after I do npm install, and they both load, what do I do after that?
npm start in both of them. And then you should be all caught up.
Hey Max, you kind of already answered it, I think, but we're connected to the database, but we're not actually like reading the polls from the database. Should those be popping up?
That's where we're starting tonight.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone need one more minute, or are we good to go? Okay. So, as Brian queued me up, right screen, yes, right screen. Okay. We are in our source folder. We've got our app.js. Our app.js is taking care of 3 routes. Remember, our route is kind of our is controlling kind of what page we see, right? So we've got our home page, we've got our post editor, and we've got this post timestamp function going on here. Well, inside our home page is using this use effect and pulling our posts from local storage. But remember, we've got a limitation from local storage. We can't have multiple users across different devices kind of share that information and have that central database. Well, if we're pulling from local storage here, what did we do on Wednesday, week 19, day 3? That we did in our post editor. In the post editor, we modified our add post in here to use this fetch. This fetch request is doing a post and sending in this information, which is coming from our state up here. So it's an important thing to be able to trace this code all the way through. And we'll go through at some point and update all of these numbers to make sure it's reflected for our full stack flow. But let's remember how people get here. They're on our homepage. From our homepage, they click on this link to go to the post editor. The post editor takes them into our post editor code, and it jumps them down to this return. This return shows the inputs for the title, the tagline, and the text area. Okay, that looks like this. Okay, now what happens? We don't go to our fetch immediately. What we do is we're in our post editor code, and whenever they change one of these inputs, anytime a letter gets pressed, we take the value of the target that the event is happening on. In other words, we take the input and we grab the value of that and set it into our title or our tagline or our content. Well, where's that coming from? That's coming from our state up here. So you can think about our on change as storing the value in the state to keep the value up to date. Well, why do we need it up to date? Because when they click on this button, it submits the form. Well, how do we know what happens there? We have this on submit add post. This add post takes us all the way up to this add post function, which pulls the title, the tagline, and the content out from the state that we were using the on change to set that value into. So basically what we do is we say anytime that this value changes, store it in state so that we have access to it when the form gets submitted. Okay, when that happens, we
Hold on,
now
sorry.
go. Yep.
Sorry. Just so I understand this. So we first start on the homepage.
Yep.
And then from the homepage, we click on the post editor.
Yep.
Link. And then we jump to the returns where we can see the tagline, title, tagline and content.
Yep, all the inputs.
Okay, and then that's coming from, once we enter something, it's coming from use state.
Both. It's a two-way thing. This title is coming from the use state, and then the set is also coming from the use state.
Okay. And then once all of that is entered, the submit button will be clicked, which will take us to the add post page.
Function. Add post isn't its own page. It is a function that runs that says, all right, what do you want us to do? How do we add that post?
Okay.
But yes, everything was spot on there.
Okay.
So
I just had to make like the mental correlation.
you're
Okay.
good. That I'm sure that helps a lot of other students as well. So feel free to keep interrupting me there. Okay, so we got to our add post. We say prevent default. This is saying, hey, we want to control how the post gets added. We don't want you to refresh the page. We don't want you to, we're going to take care of that ourselves. So don't do whatever you do by default. Then we make this object called post. The title, the tagline, and the content are all coming from our use states up here that got updated as we were typing into the form. So we get down to our fetch here, and this is where it starts to get more full stack. We take this post object that we created here, and we make a request to the backend to the post endpoint using a method called post. Now, this is a terrible example because post is both the name of the endpoint and the method and the body that we're sending in here. we probably should have called that blog post or new content or something like that to make it a little less confusing. But instead, we ended up with post, post, and post. So if this makes it any more clear, you don't have to make these changes. But I'm going to call this post content to make it a little bit easier to understand that the body has the post content in it. And then I'm going to call this new post to make it a little bit easier to understand that we're making a new post. Now, if we're making that change here, we also need to make that change in our backend. So I go to our server.js. Here is our endpoint, and I'm going to call this new post in here just so it's a little bit clearer so we can understand the correlation here. So there are 3 things that are kind of lining up between our front end and our back end. Our Zoom, where did you put my toolbar? Here we go. Okay. Our new post, the name of the endpoint, lines up with the new post right here. The 3001, this lines up with this. The 3001 lines up with the port our server is listening on. Now, the method post here, like a get or a post or a put or a delete, lines up with this post over here. And then finally, whatever we're putting in the rec body here, it happens to be the post content, is going to line up with the rec.body that's coming from the request right here.
Could you collapse the blog front end? Please and thank you.
Oh, there's no way I'm going to line that up. Where that was on the. Okay, close enough.
So how did you, how do we know, for the body, how do we know that the JSON stringify would be rec? Oh, never mind. I just answered my own question.
The application JSON here is telling the server, hey, what's in the body happens to be JSON.
Okay.
And then we do that in reverse, right? We're stringifying here. Up in our server, we do express.json. That's the opposite, right? That's what's doing the parsing for us. That's what's making rec.body not be a string, but be an object instead.
Mhm.
So we stringify it. Then we tell the backend, hey, heads up, what I'm sending you is a JSON string. And then we tell the server, hey, when you get a JSON string, convert it into an object, parse it out.
Okay.
Okay, so now that we've got all of that working, we get into the backend. So the front end is on hold, right? It's made the request and it's like, I'm awaiting a response, but the backend is like, hold your horses. I got to process that request. Okay, what is it processing? What's it doing? It's pulling in this thing called post.create. Well, in order for us to be able to create a post, the backend code needs to know what the database looks like. It needs to see a model of our database to know what the post looks like in our SQL. So the way we pull that off is in our DB folder, we have our file called post. We're using a package here called Sequelize, which is an ORM, an object relational mapper. Okay, what does that mean? Break those letters down, right? It's taking a JavaScript object and mapping it into a relational database query. And it can go both ways. We've only seen it take an object, convert it into SQL, and insert that into the database. What we're about to do is do that in reverse. We're about to say, hey, take this relational data, map it into an object, and then send that object to the front end. We're going to see that in just 1 minute. So we set up our database here. And the hardest part of getting started with Sequelize is all of the connection stuff. However, you guys can take this and use it right in your capstone, right? You can create your new capstone database. You can take this code, copy it right in, and get your model started. So our model is saying, hey, there's an ID. The ID has some special fields related with it, like the auto increment and the primary key. And then it has our data types, right? Because we know every column in Postgres needs its own, in any SQL database, a column has a data type associated with it. So we take this post model and we say, create a new post based off of whatever is in the rec.body. Well, what's in the rec.body? We come back over to our front end. That's our post content. Our post content has our title, our tagline, and our content. All of that is coming from the front end, from the state. Okay, so now we finally res.send back status okay. Basically, what the front end is doing is it's waiting to hear some response from the back end before it moves on. So over here, we wait for our fetch to be done. When it is done, once it does have the server response, it can move on to navigating to the front end, to the home page. Exona.
Okay, I'm lost.
Okay, where?
I am lost how you made the correlation between the post and the server. Like how maybe even before that. Honestly, do you mind just going back to like default and
Okay.
starting from there? From that
So
default?
our so we add post button is clicked. We say
Mhm.
browser, stop it, don't be dumb. I'm going to take care of this.
Okay.
Prevent default. Then we say, all right, we need to get all of our content together. What got typed into the form? We want to cluster all of that into one object.
Okay.
So we pull title, tagline, and content. All of those are coming from title, tagline, and content that were stored in our state.
Okay.
Then we go, we want to send this to the back end. Why do we want to send this to the back end? Because we want to save this post in the database so anyone else loading my site using the same database can see the content that I've created. So in order to get that together, we do our fetch.
Mm-hmm.
We say we're going to 3001 because the server is listening on 3001. We say we are going to go to the new post endpoint, which we have right over here. So that lines up. And we also use the method called post, because post is historically the method we use whenever we want to create something new in the database or in the backend. Then we also send in this post content, which is the object that is clustering all of our data together in an object.
Okay.
Now we're out of the front end. The front end is going to wait for the back end to send a response and say, hey, it's done, it's ready. So what we do is we go to our back end, and we've already lined up the 3000, the post, and the new post endpoint. So we know we're working inside of here. We know the rec.body is what's getting sent in from the front end over here.
Mm-hmm.
So now we want to create a new post in the database. So what we end up doing is we have this post file, and we end up importing that right up here from the database.
So the post file is created by us, or is created? So we're the ones who created it, correct?
We
Okay.
made this model, yes.
Okay. Oops. Okay.
So because this model, this file, already knows that it has a column called ID and title and tagline and knows all the data types, we don't need to write a SQL query to say insert into post values, blah, 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 blah. It's automatically generating that for us. It is mapping the object into a relational database query.
Mm-hmm.
So that's our object relational mapper. So when we say create in here, we can actually test this out. I'm going to go to my front end. I'm going to create a new thing, ABC, and pay attention to my terminal over here, my backend terminal. When I click the post button, you'll see it says executing insert into posts, ID, title, tagline, and then it has our values in here. That is what the ORM is generating out for us. Sequelize is taking by running this post.create command, it's taking what it knows from the model and running this SQL command. That means that when we switch over to Beekeeper Studio and look in our blog database, we can see my post just got created here with tonight's timestamp. Almost over the finish line. We then say, once you've done that in the database, wait for it to be done in the database. When it is, send back a response to the front end that the post is created, we're good to go. Artrell, I'll come to you in 1 second. Once we send it back to the front end, we switch back over to our front end code. We were waiting for the response. The response has now come through, so we can then navigate them back to the home page. And that's where we left off. Artrell, you changed your mind?
I pressed it by accident, but I was looking at my Beekeeper and it looks different than yours. I don't, I guess when we get to it, you'll help me get up to speed with it.
Do you have a Beekeeper that looks like this instead?
Yes.
All you need to do is double click on local DB.
Okay.
And now you have your drop down in the top left. You want to change that to blog before you forget.
All right. Now I'm up to speed. Thank you.
Schneider, what's up?
So the ORM, is it just like you're creating the table in here and then it'll populate in like the Beekeeper?
Correct.
Okay.
The ORM is a way for us to write everything out in JavaScript and have it automatically do the right things in the SQL database for us. And there are some security reasons for that as well, but I'm going to probably save that until Thursday's class to touch on a little bit. We'll learn a little bit about SQL injection. All right, do we have any questions? We want to have a solid foundation on this stuff before we add anything new. This is a lot. This is a full stack flow. Haven't done our read, update, and delete operations yet, so we're going to get a little bit more practice doing all of this, but this is a very common flow in React, in anything that requires a backend, anything that has a database. These are the steps that you will be taking time and time again. So if we have any conceptual questions, now's the time to ask them. Shiner, what's up? Oh,
Sorry.
hand raise.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, Jordan, what's up?
My Beekeeper keeps quitting on me and it says unexpectedly quit. So I have been a little bit behind. How do I get it to transition into Beekeeper Studio?
Share your screen.
Okay.
It may be that your Beekeeper isn't actually opening from your applications folder.
Okay.
Oh no, it looks okay. So if you double click on
Yeah.
that, and then
Okay.
in the top left, go from Postgres, go to blog, and then you can open up your post table, double click on that. And now if you go to your front end in the browser,
Front end in the browser, like down here.
not
Oh.
go live because npm start already started it. So it's that tab, just pull that up,
Oh yeah.
hit go to post editor, type some stuff in there.
I don't know.
Just
What
do
do-
A and B or something. Doesn't matter. A, B, C.
Okay. And then tagline.
Sure.
A.
And then stuff.
Okay, so your backend crashed. The way I know that is I saw the red pop up in the terminal over here. So we've got some debugging to do. And I know while everyone else in the class is going, oh, great. This is important because everyone's going to be debugging. You debug more than you write new code. It's just a way of being a developer. So your error in here, initially you see this and you're like, app crashed. Oh my God, panic. Well, we want to know why it crashed. The fact that it crashed isn't actually the big deal. We want to see the error. So we go in here and we see all of these things like fatal and 2800, and we're like, no idea what all of that means. But you notice when we start pulling this apart, there's something in here that actually makes sense. Error, roll, hack upstate does not exist.
Oh yeah, because I have to change my.
So if you go to your DB, we want to use the username of your computer. So if we save that, now you'll see the server restarted and we don't have any errors. So I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to hit the post button. Not only did that take me back to the home screen, but we saw over here in our terminal, this big block of text showed up that was doing our insert into posts. That's a good sign because now when we go to our beekeeper and hit the refresh button in the bottom right, we see our post show up in there.
Cool, thank you.
No problem. And a good reminder for anyone, if you're using my code, make sure you go to the db.js file and rename the username from hack upstate to whatever the username is on your computer. We have any other questions? Kalai, what's up?
Having a problem, that's
Sure, sure, it's me.
it says line 29 post is not defined.
So it's going to be on your front end in your post editor folder. Or post editor file.
That's what I'm right now, but 29 console.log post.
Yeah, just go ahead and change that to post content. I renamed that just to make it a little bit clearer, and I must have removed that console log. So if you save and then try it again, you should be good to go.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? Okay. So we're reviewed, we're caught up, we're good to go. Now we're going to rewind back to what Brian was saying was, hey, we've got my first post in new and A and E in here. But if I look in my Beekeeper Studio, am I in the wrong Beekeeper? Local blog. I've got ABC and 987 in here, and this doesn't line up with what I'm seeing over here. Okay, well, why is that? That's because if I go back to my code, in my home.js, I'm pulling from local storage. And I'm like, hey, that was great a couple weeks ago, but we're way beyond local storage now. We want to get these posts from our database. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and delete out everything in my use effect, but leave the use effect itself. The reason why this use effect is important is because anytime this page updates, it would rerun our API call to go get all the posts. If we put it in the use effect, though, with this empty array, React is smart about it, and it's going to say, hey, only the first time this component shows up, do we want to go to the server and go get those new blog posts? Okay, so to get those blog posts, we need a fetch. We're going to say const posts response is equal to await a fetch. And yes, Jennifer.
Sorry to not have done that sooner. Just trying to find out what line we started at with that erase.
Anything inside the use effect.
Let's see, so that goes all the way down to the yellow bracket. Okay, thank you.
So I'm in here and I immediately have a red squiggly that says, hey, not allowed to use a weight without async. So I come up here and I throw this async on here. And then before I get too far, if I switch back over to my Google Chrome and pop open my console, we're going to see this thing in here that says use effect must not return anything besides a function. It looks like you wrote async or returned a promise. Instead, write an async function inside your effect and call it immediately. What that is basically saying is use effect doesn't like to have async as its first parameter. I am sure there is some very technical, complicated reason for that that goes well over my head to be able to understand. However, I do know how to fix it. What they're saying is take the async off of here. They don't want an async up there. Instead, what they want is a function like make API call that's going to be async. Take your fetch and put it inside the make API call function, then call make API call in here. So that is just a long way of saying that use effect doesn't like to be async. Instead, it wants you to make an async function and then go ahead and call it immediately. It does not want you to make the use effect itself async. Okay. Now we go back into our fetch and we're like, what are we fetching? Well, we know our backend is on HTTP localhost 3001, and we want to go get all the posts. And once we get all the posts, we're going to say our posts data is equal to an await our post response .json. And once we get all of those posts, we can set them into the state using the post data.
Can we? Am I on mute? No, right?
Nope, I can hear it.
Okay, perfect. Can we just do like a little recap? Give me 1 second. A little recap what we just did really quick.
So we had our use effect already, but it was pulling stuff from local storage. We didn't want to pull from local storage. We wanted to get our posts from the backend, from the database.
Okay.
And so what we did is we said, hey, we need a fetch. In order to do a fetch, we need a wait. But use effect doesn't like async up here in this main function. Instead, what it wants us to do is make our own async function and then call it immediately after we make that function. So we have to do that just because React doesn't like the keyword async up here. It likes it down here in our own function. Then we're saying, all right, our posts are in the backend. We need to go get them. So we're going to make a fetch request. When that response comes back from the server, parse out the JSON, get that into the data. And then once we have that data, set those posts into state, which means that once they're in state, it will go down here, map over them, and show me a new card for every post using the timestamp and the tagline and, the content and all of that stuff.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Could you scroll back up? I still just gotta finish that.
Okay. So we got most of that code in there. We head over to our browser. I'm going to refresh to clear out the console. And the first thing that I get is this 404 not found posts. What is this error trying to tell us?
That the server doesn't have a path.
Exactly. We're trying to do a request to posts. And because we didn't specify any options or an object in there, what we need to do is, or what we assume is it's making a get request. Well, it's trying to get the posts and it's over here. And it's like, well, we're not going to the home page of the API and we're not going to new post. So server doesn't know what to do. So what we need to do is say server.get, because get is the default method that is used when we don't specify a different one. And we're going to go get our posts. And when we get the posts, we know they're going to be async because they're coming from the database. And every endpoint has a request of the data coming in and the response that we want to send back. Believe it or not, we can access our posts directly. Instead of using .create, what we're going to do is say const posts equals await posts .find all. Go find all the posts in the database. And once you have found them, res.send back the posts. Go take the data from the database and send that back to the response of the incoming request. So we save, we go back to our front end. Now keep in mind that the front end won't automatically refresh once we fix an error in the back end. So sometimes when you get your back end working, what you want to do is click the refresh button. And now we've got errors all over the place. Our back end hasn't crashed, but if you look in the front end, we've got this post_in_state.map is not a function. Whoa, where did that come from? Well, what's happening here is we're taking our post data and we're setting that into state. Because we've set it into state, it now looks at this post in state and is trying to map over it. And it's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what that map is. Well, in order to figure out what's going wrong here, I don't want to debug here, and I don't even want to debug here. I want to know what's coming back in my post data. What is causing that to crash? So I'm going to console log out my posts data. And when I switch back over to my browser and refresh, I still have an error here. We haven't fixed anything. But if we go up to the very top here, I can see this object. And this object has an array inside of it called posts. And inside that array is all the data I'm looking for. Well, what's happening is when I'm setting this into state, it's setting the whole object. I don't want the whole object. I want the array of all of the posts. So I need to go back to my front end code and say, hey, I'm not just sending in the post data. I'm setting in the array of posts into state. So now we go back to our front end and check out, we've got an invalid date going on here, but we should see our posts from the database.
I can't see mine at all.
And you're caught up on code?
I think so. I hope so.
Share screen.
So this is what it looks like.
You.
I know. And then this is my,
So I don't like that your front end isn't running. Try hitting in the terminal, hit Y. Okay, now we got a more friendly error on post content is not defined on line editor 36.
on post editor.
36. In for on just take out that console log.
I'm just gonna,
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, and now we have a different error, home line 22.
Oh,
Switch to- you have some code. Yeah, so take that out.
this,
That whole line, yeah. And then take the set posts in state and take all of that out as well. We're doing that already on 14. And now the only thing you're missing on 14, you need to do post data dot posts.
right here, set posts and say post
Post
data.
data dot posts.
Okay,
With an S because we got multiple posts. Now you're good to go.
thank you.
We'll fix invalidate next.
Okay. I'll stop sharing.
Okay, Jordan, what's up?
Mine is not working.
Okay, share your screen.
Okay, so it's saying that line 10, the space that's there, I don't know
Yep.
why it's not
So look at line 10. What looks wrong to you there?
all of it. No, I'm just kidding.
The red squiggly is usually the first red squiggly is usually a good sign of where it's wrong.
Okay, so oh shit. No. No. It made it even worse. Can I see your I can't see yours while I'm screen sharing. Did I like copy it wrong into there?
Mm-hmm. How do we declare a new function?
I'm not following. I'm sorry.
How do we make a new function? Look at line 5. Line 5 is a new function. Compare line 5 to line 10.
Am I supposed to be okay. Is that what I'm supposed to be doing?
Sure is.
Okay, and then that one went away too. Oh shit. Okay, never mind. I'm good then. Thank you. And then after this, do I just
Well, save it. Let's make sure
Save
it's
it.
actually fixed.
yeah?
Okay.
then-
Now, yep. And refresh in your homepage. And now we've got a failed to fetch on home 11. So let's look at home 11, scroll up a little bit. That is you're fetching localhost 3001, go over a little bit more to your posts. Okay, and now look at your backend. Where does that line up in your backend?
I gotta move the screens out of the way. Okay, and then
Look at your first red squiggly there.
right here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then why is that one there?
You are missing a closing parenthesis on 21.
Oh, right there.
Mm-hmm. Save.
And then
Now head back to your front end. I'm sorry, to your browser.
Oh, okay.
You would think after 4 years of me teaching, I would finally learn to say, go to your browser instead of to your front end. And you're all caught up.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Good work. Jennifer, what's going on?
I have a React hook use effect has a missing dependency. And I'm really not sure what's happening. It's in my home JS.
I do not have that. So share your screen.
Yeah, I was like, it's not there in Max's. I really messed up.
I don't think it's a really mess up. I think it's maybe a missing curly brace in the wrong spot or something.
Okay, well, let's see here.
Up to your use effect. Oh,
Oh, it's not here. It's in post. Line 17 in post.
we haven't touched that code yet. We are going to be touching that code after break though. So hold on to it because we're going to rewrite a lot of that code.
All right, thanks.
No
Sorry about
problem. No, you're good. Any other questions? Artrell?
Yeah, I think I got lost somewhere.
Okay. Can you share your screen?
Okay. All right, so my error is saying posts response is not defined.
All right, so let's head to that.
So home. So this one is mine. So line 1231. So here's 12
Mm-hmm.
of the
And
post.
where is post's response supposed to be coming from?
The response is supposed to be coming from. Is it the back end?
Mm-hmm. And how do we make a request to the back end? How do we get the response from the back end?
From the server?
Mm-hmm. So we take our post response on line 12, but where does our post response come from?
The post's response comes from.
Look at our post response here. Where is that post response defined?
Okay. Post response.
Scroll back up. Leave it there. This, we know our error is right here on post's response. Where does post's response come from? No scrolling. The answer is on your screen. Post response right here. Where does that come from?
From the post's data.
No, that's what it's getting stored into.
Oh,
But where
okay.
does the post's response actually come from?
Not
What, what does fetch do?
it's gonna get the information from the local from that page.
And then it's going to get what gets sent back from the request.
What people input.
What always goes with a request? A request and
Response.
okay. And so we do our fetch and we get some response, and where do we store it? What line do we do our fetch?
Well, here it's line 11.
Okay, and where do we store the response?
Oh, 11 also right there, post response.
We are taking our post response from line 11, and we're supposed to be using it in line 12 to get the JSON out of it. What do you notice between posts response and post response?
I'm missing the S.
You sure are.
I was catching the other ones, but I missed that one. Ah, okay.
So the reason why I'm dragging you through that and not just saying, hey, you're missing an S, is we want to take that step back, right? And go, all right, we wrote all this code. What's this code doing? All of this code is all about flowing, right? We do our fetch. We take whatever's going on over here and we throw it into our post response over here. Okay, now we take the post response, we use it in the JSON here, we put all of that in our data. Now that that's in our data, we use that data to set that into state. Okay, now that it's in state, where do we use that state? We use that in posts in state. Where does the posts in state go? That goes down to our map in our render, which is going to make it all show up. I know it looks like a bad play from yesterday's game, but it is important to be able to flow through all of that and say, all right, how are all of these linkages coming in? Because the error was saying posts response is not defined. Well, what does not defined mean? It means it hasn't been made. It doesn't exist yet. Where did we make our posts response? We made it on the line right above it to hold what was coming back from our fetch, and we wanted to store that into somewhere. So that's why we want to read those errors and go, all right, what do you mean it's not defined? I tried to define it right here, and then that will catch you on to the missing S in the posts response. Now you do have one more error on line 16. You are missing the parentheses after make API call. Now head back over to your browser and you're all caught up.
Thank you.
No problem. Sorry to put you through the ringer.
No, it's fine. I need it.
Schneider, what's up?
Well, put me through the ringer too. Can't find my I'm assuming it's a spelling error, but yeah. So can I share the screen?
Yep.
It's telling me, I'm a little confused because it's telling me that it's in post editor, but then it's also telling me home. So I'm thinking, is it home.js or is it my post editor? So it's getting me a little confused.
Let me see your error again. Post editor line 29, post is not defined. So go to your post editor. Go to line 20. Nope, that's mine.
Oh, shoot. Is it yours? What the hell? I thought yours was back here. That's my
Nope, that's also mine.
bro. Oh, just give me this
Still
is
mine.
I'm confusing myself. Cool.
Go one more over. Okay, there's yours. Okay, line 29. I renamed my post content to make it a little more clear. And then I tried to console log that out. So we changed line 20 to say post content, but we didn't change 29 to also say post content.
I don't have anything in line 29, but it's console log.
Yes.
So that's what was messing me up as well.
Yes. What are we trying to log out there?
Post content.
Mm-hmm. And what are we logging out?
Post, but okay, let me try it out. Anyway. Bruh. I'm confused. Why would a console log throw me an error like that? I thought, is it because it couldn't find
the
anything?
console log? You're telling the console log to log something out that doesn't exist.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
And so, no, what's up? Nope.
Nope. What? Oh,
Yeah, I'm still muted. Sorry. I'm getting an error on my console saying posts in state.map is not a function.
when you set your state, when you say set posts in state, instead of it just being post data, it should be post data dot posts.
Post data.
Set
So,
posts in state, post data dot posts.
Okay, so function 25. Set, oh, post data dot. But we did that, so why didn't it work?
You had the dot posts at the end of it.
Yeah, for
Oh,
set.
share your screen.
posting-
Let's take a look.
So I have it right here.
You do. Oh, I bet you that's an old error. Go to your browser and just hit the refresh button and see if you still have
Oh my
that.
God.
The unique key we'll fix in a second, but that error is now gone.
Yay, thanks. Sorry.
No problem. Oh, it's fine. All right. So we did our create on Wednesday. We've got our read working now. After the break, we've got to do some cleanup on our read because our data structure has changed a little bit. We're going to fix invalidate. We're going to get our key working, and then we're going to learn how to integrate routing using IDs now instead of timestamps. And then we've got to do a read, but a slightly different kind of read on our database. So we're going to do that when we get back at 7:25 from break. And we'll see you guys then. Okay, so where we left off, we have our fetch going on. Our fetch is going to the back end. Instead of doing post.create like we do in the creating a new post, we do .find all instead. That find all is going to the database and sending that information back in our response. We then take that response, pull the posts out of it, and set that into our state. Our set state, because React doesn't care where the data is coming from, as long as the data is all structured the same way, goes through and uses the title and a couple other pieces of information with that in order to get our post showing up here. However, we run into a little bit of a problem. We've got two errors here. This says each child in the list should have a unique key prop. Okay, what's that saying? Well, when we loop over anything using a .map, before we were using the timestamp as the key for the post, but we don't actually need to use the timestamp anymore because we've got a better key. We've got a better unique identifier. That's the ID that gets generated with the database. So if we console log out our ID and refresh over in our browser, I'm sorry, not console log. If we set our key to post.id instead of post.timestamp, we can see in our browser that error is now out of the console. However, we've got a much uglier thing going on here that says invalidate. Okay, well, where's that coming from? First, let's identify that in our code. We've got this new date, use the post.timestamp and convert that to a local date string. Well, something's going on there. So what I'm going to do is before my return, I'm going to do a console log out the post. I want to know what data is coming back in that post. So I come over here and I can pop open either one of these, and we've got a created that and an updated that, but no timestamp. Okay, well, why is that? When we go to our post editor, we very clearly have a timestamp in here. So why don't we have a timestamp in our homepage when we're looking at it here? Well, let's trace through this flow. We've got our timestamp here. We take this whole post content and we send it to the backend. The backend then takes the body and creates a new post. But take a look at what's going on in our post. We've got an ID, a title, a tagline, and the content, but we don't have a timestamp. So what's happening is if we go over to Beekeeper and look, we've got all these columns for ID, title, tagline, content, but because we didn't create a timestamp column, that data isn't getting captured in the database. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to take out the timestamp from our post editor because that's just getting ignored from the backend. So we're going to take that timestamp out and instead Beekeeper by default creates these columns for us called created at and updated at. And it's actually better to let the server generate the time than it is for us to generate it on the front end. So in order to fix that, we're going to go back to our home. And instead of using post.timestamp, we're going to use post.createdAt instead. So we swap those two out, we go back to our browser, and now we've got our time back up and running like before. So the only changes that we need there, or instead of post.timestamp, we use post created at and post created at down here in the date.
And that plugin works because it's the model we created, so that's how it's connected.
Correct. By default, Postgres will, by default, SQLize will create created at and updated columns for us on any model that we create.
But we don't have to put that in the ID, the return ID and post.js, right?
The key needs to get set to post ID. We're going to deal with the consequences of that in a second. That answer your question?
No, I don't
What
think
was your
so.
question?
My question is in post.js in the back end, we don't have the created at or the updated at. Is that we don't need to do that because you said SQLize does it, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Just making sure I understood.
Yep. Okay. So if everything's working as expected, we should have our homepage back up and running and no longer have invalid dates showing up.
I have the dates, but I don't have the time.
Make sure you've got
Yeah.
2 dates in here. One's a local date string and the other one's a local time string, and they should both be using created at.
Yeah, that was the mistake. Thank you.
Cool.
I have a question, Max.
Yeah.
Shoot, where was I? I think I just lost my place. Oh dear God, I lost my place.
Okay. Well, when you find it, raise your hand.
Oh wait, there it is.
You found it.
I found it. Sorry. So in Beekeeper, did you say we have to go in and delete anything?
No. I was just showing in Beekeeper, all the data is in here, included the created at and updated at.
Yep. Okay, thanks.
So nothing to change there, just kind of seeing all 3 pieces of the stack in our 3 sections of the code.
Great.
Well, 3 different windows. I guess this technically isn't code, but you know.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got all of this working and we're feeling pretty good. And so I come in here and I click on my read more button and I get post does not exist or is loading. And look at what my URL is, post undefined. Well, what we did before, if we look in our link, was we used the post.timestamp. And we did that because the timestamp was the only guaranteed unique thing on the post. But we could use created at here, but there's a better ID. The database is generating a unique ID for us. We should use that. Hopefully, at the end of this, you get a little light bulb moment and you go, oh, I can make this so that I have details of something in my database and I have a summary page on my capstone. And when I click the more info button on my homepage or my summary page or my table or whatever it is, that could link me to another page that had more information about that post. So that's what we're going to implement right now. Instead of doing post.timestamp, we're going to do a post.id. That is in our home.js. So down in the link, make sure you got your post.timestamp is now using a post.id. Now we want to give our router a heads up that we're not sending in the timestamp anymore. We're going to be sending in an ID. So to fix that, we've got to go to our app.js, and in the route, instead of it having colon timestamp, we're going to have a colon ID. App.js, in our last route to the post, we're going to change timestamp to ID. Okay, now that we've got that fixed, we now finally head over to our last page, which is post.js. And in our post.js, we've got more local storage crap going on here. We don't want any more of local storage. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in our use effect, and we're going to delete out everything inside of it. And instead of the params.timestamp, we're going to use params.id. Now, hopefully, you go, wait a second, this is all very similar. We want to make an API call. And that's going to be async. And because we want to make that API call run, we're going to put that in. And we can't put async up in the use effect because React gets cranky with us. So we make our own little function called async. And then we go, all right, we're going to go get our post response. Notice I don't have an S in this because we're only going to get one post back. So we do our post response. And I'm going to say await a fetch. And I'm going to go to my localhost 3000. But we're going to do this in a different order this time. I know I can't just make up some random endpoint. I need to go make that endpoint work first. So I'm going to give you guys a second to catch up on this, and then we'll switch over to our backend code. Only thing that we've changed in Post.js is inside the use effect here and the params.id.
I know that the square brackets are, to make the API run once. So you put stuff in there. What's that doing?
That's saying whenever the ID changes in the params, go rerun the API call.
Oh, yeah, they could do that. That's cool.
Good question. No way to test if this is working yet. That's okay. We'll get to that in a second. Anyone need another minute? Good. Okay. So we are going to go make a new endpoint and make sure you've got backticks in here because we're going to use our template literal. We're going to say, go get a post, but we're going to be very specific. What post do we want to get? We want to get the post that has the ID coming from the params. So we pause there once we get our post params ID in. And what we're going to do is go back over to our backend. We're going to go to our server.js, and we're going to say, hey, we're going to server.get a post with an ID in the route. Then we need our async recres. And we're going to say, hey, the post that we're looking for, instead of going to the database and finding all the posts, I want to find the post by the PK, the primary key. And where is my primary key coming from? It's actually coming from my request dot params dot ID. Don't worry, we'll do a whole flow through this. And when we're done, we're going to res.send back our post. So this ID lines up with this ID in the route. How does the computer know I'm not literally sending in the letters ID? Because I put the colon there. Because that colon's in there, it knows, hey, that data is going to flow through the request, through the route.
I don't really understand how can, I mean, it's gonna sound pretty dumb, I guess, but the PKs are like Boolean or what, true and false. So how's it gonna go by
PK
that?
is a number. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
That we set the primary key to true.
Ah, gotcha. Not a dumb question. We said that this is the primary key on the field. So it's not that we're setting the row to true, it's we're saying that this column called ID happens to be the primary key. And we can prove that because if we go over to Beekeeper, you can see not only is our ID 234, but it also has the little key next to it. So when we say primary key true, we're actually saying, hey, this is the key column. We're not actually saying the ID should be true, true, true.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Brian, what's up?
Okay, yeah, and that just kind of leads me to another question. So like say you had another, like say there was a scenario where you wanted to have unique IDs that the database didn't choose for you. Like say for instance, like the ISBN of a book. You know what I mean? In that case, if you were to set that to true, that to the primary key in the database, like just like the way you indicated that true is for that ID, if you were to use that search by PK, would it still work the same way because that column is the primary key?
Yeah, so 2 questions that you're asking there. You don't need to set the auto increment to true. So if you said ISBN is the primary key and then you inserted that ISBN and enforced that it was unique, it would be totally fine to use the primary key on a different field that was not an auto increment. Or it didn't even have to be a type data type integer. You could set that primary key on ISBN if you wanted to. You would do ISBN and then you would say type is, let's just say it's a string, even though I know ISBNs are usually numbers, and then you could just do a primary key here of true. And then not do your auto increment. However, what you could also do if you wanted to is if for some reason you didn't want to find by the primary key, if you wanted to find based off of another field, you can actually pass that information into the find one query. So you can say, where the ISBN is 123, and that would be another way to find it.
Awesome. That definitely answers my questions. Thank you.
If you had any of that code, you can, what I just did in the last couple minutes, you can delete it. Okay, so we got our server. Oh, Jordan, go ahead.
Mine is saying uncaught type error failed to fetch.
We might fix that in a second.
Okay.
We also may not, so raise your hand if you're still stuck at the next break. Okay, so we got our server get ID. We're going to the database. We're using this new one. So we're seeing some functions built into Postgres here. We've got our create, we've got find all the posts, and now we're finding by the primary key. So we find that in the database, we put it in post, and we send it in the response back to the front end. So now we've got to deal with that on the front end. We come over here and we say, hey, our const post data is equal to the await post response .json. And then we are going to set our post to the post data .post. So I save that, I go back over to my Chrome, and I'm stuck on this post undefined. Well, we fixed that in the link. So if I go back to the home page and refresh, I get a very terrible connection refused. So if I'm getting a connection refused here, that means my backend probably crashed. And I know that because if I switch back over to the terminal, we see app crashed waiting for file changes, and we read through the very terrible error, and it says invalid input syntax for type integer undefined. That means that I believe I used the wrong variable name. I'm gonna stop my server over here. I'm gonna hit up enter to restart it. And then I'm gonna try that again. I'm gonna go back to my home page. I'm gonna refresh. And when I click on one of these posts, notice what comes up now, my ABC. So sometimes your app crashes and you fix it somewhere else, but you've got to tell it to restart. In order to get that to work, I went down to my terminal, I hit Control-C to stop it, I hit up, enter to restart it, and then I went back over to my front end, made it back to my home page, clicked on any one of the read mores, and I got that exact post. And you can even see that that's working because if you look down in our terminal, you see select ID, title, tag like content from posts where the post ID equals 3 or whatever number you clicked on. So we're going to pause there. I'm going to poll to make sure you guys are following along. Don't forget, if you have an error, stop your backend server, restart it, go back to your home page in the browser and see if that fixes it. Xona, what's up?
Do you mind just showing your front end code? I think I'm missing a portion of it.
Yeah, let me try and juggle both of those. So it's this server get on 23, and then it's the entire use effect from 12 to 21 in Post.js.
Okay. So, wait.
Jordan, what's up?
So I stopped my server and then started it again, and then it's just coming up with like the squiggly, the listing directory, with the squiggly and the slash.
Give me 1 second just in case people are reading off my screen, and then you can share yours.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, you guys are getting the chin angle all week. I forgot my webcam on.
I'm sorry, Max. I couldn't see what was the last thing that you actually added. Because my tablet was dying and I had to switch to my phone.
We did a server.get on the back end, so line 23 through 26. And then in Post.js, we made changes to this use effect. So line 12 through 21, that should have everything inside of it.
We didn't do anything after that.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
We restarted the backend server. If it crashed, we went back to the home page in the browser. And if you click any of the read more buttons, you should get to that exact post that we're looking for.
Mine is still saying post does not exist.
Okay. And on your homepage, under the link, are you using the correct post ID?
Post.id?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay. Jordan was in line first. Let me help him and then I'll come to you next.
I can't share screen, so
Okay. Do you want to send me a live share of both your front end and back end and I can get to it that way?
okay.
Jordan, go for it. Okay, so no errors in the front end or back end. So what's happening in the browser?
That.
Okay, that's because you started your live share. So we don't do live share on anything React. Instead,
yeah,
you just
okay.
want to go right to 3000. And I think you're on 2. Nope.
3001.
1's the back end. 3000 is your
yeah.
front end. So now when you click on read more, so we're kind of there. We've got this post 1. And we are, so because we've got the 1 in the URL, that means that our link is properly working right here.
Okay.
So then we start tracing that a little bit more. When the post loads, it's going to do our fetch with the post response, and it's going to use the params.id. So
Okay.
now we go back over to your backend and go, okay, from there, we use the post ID, find by ID, and we use the ID coming from the params. However, we crashed because our app.js is still using timestamp.
Oh, shit.
Instead,
Okay.
it needs to be using the ID.
Okay.
So let's test that. We go back to the home page. Now our server still crashed because the server got something in it and it's like, I don't know what happened there. So we got to hit Control C to stop it and up enter to restart it.
Yep, my bad.
Okay. Now we come over here, we refresh, we have our post, we
Okay.
click read more, and well, we're a step closer. Our back end didn't crash. So we've got to figure out what's going on over here. Over here in our post, we've got our post response, but we're not doing anything with that post response. So we
Okay.
got to do our JSON parse and our set state. So look at mine. You've got like 3 more lines of code to go, and then you'll be all caught up.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
And I'm going to share my screen and pull up your live share. And then I'll come to you, Exona. So, new window. Copy. Sure. Name share. Join. Enter. And let me share screen. Oh, wrong one. Okay. So you are also missing the last couple steps of the make API call. You need in here, I've got the .json and then the set state. And so basically getting the response isn't enough. We've got to deal with the JSON. And then once we get the JSON parsed out, we can set it into state. And that's what's triggering React to make that content show up. that's going to be inside your make API call, Alba, because we have to wait for the fetch to come back. That looks right now. Save, see if that fixes it. And if it does, I'll exit out of your live share. Cool. Good work. Xander, do you still have a question?
Yeah, so first of all, Jordan, charge your computer because you're about to die. Second of all, I saw it was red, so I was like, oh my God. I'm just getting a lot of error under my console. Do you mind if I can just share my screen?
Sure. Errors or warnings?
Warnings.
Oh, I have a lot of them too. Is it working in the browser?
No, I can't even post it. Like,
Oh,
I
okay.
can't-
Share your screen. Let's take a look.
First of all, did I just forget how to share a screen?
The anxiety that you guys cause me with like low batteries, I just like, if I were anything below like 40%, I would be freaking out. Okay,
Me too.
so let's start at the very beginning. I'm gonna go back to your home page and I'm gonna refresh, and we immediately get a connection refuse. So connection refuse means something crapped the bed in the back end. So we go up to find by PK is not a function. That is because that K is lowercase because it stands for primary key. So server rebooted, no errors there. We refresh on our front end. Now we don't have any errors. And if I click on read more, you get to the right one and you're good to go.
Okay, so it's just the case.
It was the K, and fixing the K made the server reboot, and making the server reboot made the home screen work again.
Thank you.
Now we get to the point where it's not just about reading the errors, it's about finding the errors, right? Because it can be in our front end in the console, it can be in our back end in our terminal, could be something that crashed in the database that's causing the issue, could be that we fixed the error and the server still crashed and we just need to reboot it. Lots of different factors going on here, right? See, lots of head turning and squinting. So just gonna give you guys one more minute. Feel free to ask any questions if you need help. And before we move forward on anything, we're gonna do a trace through all of this, of everything that we did.
Now, what was I supposed to get to show up after it was going to be done loading?
Make sure your server isn't crashed. If your server is crashed, reboot it. Damn it, it's the wrong. Okay. I will fix that for tomorrow. If your server is crashed, make sure you Control-C to stop it, hit Up Enter to restart it. Then go back to Chrome and make sure that you're on your home page. If you're on your home page, not only should your post load, but if you click the read more button, it should take you to that content. Brandon.
Okay, so I have this issue where I keep getting 404 new post not found. So I've been trying to kind of work back through that.
Okay.
Um
So in your backend, where do you create your post?
here.
Yep. And what is that URL?
Oh, there we go. Hold on. Forgot
To be fair, we did change that. You're not crazy. We did change it to make the URL a little bit more clear.
Yeah, this whole time I was just trying to hunt down where I could find it and then just couldn't. All right,
All
thank you.
good. No
Was
problem.
Control-C to stop it.
Yep. You only need to control C it if it crashed. Otherwise, it will automatically reboot for you.
Okay, gotcha. Thanks.
No problem. Clyde.
I guess it's the same problem, Max. I'm not sure. So it's not showing up like when I do something. So
Okay, let me request remote. And I notice immediately your server is crashed over here. So I'm going to hit Control C to stop it. And
I did
up and
twice, but still.
okay, so that's working. It when it crashes is super helpful, right? So our homepage is working, everything's good there. We can go to our post editor, we type in 4, 5, and 6, and we hit post, and we still haven't crashed it, so that's good. And we have our 4, 5 post showing up here. And then if I click read more, now we've got a problem. And notice over here it crashed. So I'm going to look inside our, it says it is crashing because invalid input type for syntax integer params.id. So that is in our get ID.
Single.
You've got your rec params ID here. I don't see any issue there. So let's work our way backwards. That comes in from the params.id here,
Single.
but I'm using a template literal.
Yeah, I got that. Yeah, sorry.
So we fixed that there. Now, because we fixed that on the front end, our back end is still crashed. So we've got to hit Control C to stop it and up enter to restart it. And now when we refresh here, oh, over here, sorry, 3000, read more.
Okay,
Good to go.
thank you.
No problem. Jennifer, you're up.
Great. I'm in my front end and I'm having a couple of post editor issues. But I can't figure out what they are. I have to share my screen.
Go for it.
Keep pouring over it. I'm like, okay, I fixed one problem, but now these two popped up and I got to use the fact in server response.
So those are just warnings. So that's, we can ignore warnings. We'll fix them eventually. What's more important is what's going on in the browser.
Browser.
Okay, so let's create a new post here. And I noticed that did not show up. So we got a couple things to work through there. So I'm going to refresh here. So we did one with A and C in it, right? And that didn't show up. So
Right.
I'm going to go to your front end because that's where it all kicks off. And we are in post editor. We take our post content, we do our post, we stringify it, we say it's JSON, we send all of that in. And then once it comes back, we navigate back to the homepage. So from there, we go to our back end and we go to our server.js where we've got our
I had it
post
fixed
to
them.
new post.
Yep.
And what we've got here is a post to regular post, not to new post. So we go back to our front end, we go to post editor, we say ACC and hit post. And now we've got our ACC.
Oh, okay.
So if we read more on that, we got our ACC and you are all caught up.
Okay. Thanks.
No problem. Anyone else need help or just another minute? Okay, we're going to do one more to practice, and then we'll do our documentation flow. Don't worry, this one's going to be a little bit easier. We're going to make our delete work. So normally we would do an update, but for whatever reason, I'm saying, hey, let's not worry about update. Let's get our delete working. So I'm going to share my screen again. And I'm going to see, I fixed which one it shares now, and now all my windows are scattered. This one, nope. My front end on the right side. Okay. So in my post, I am going to add, I'm going to go down and I'm going to add a div that says delete. And maybe let's put that in a span that has a style. And remember, in React, we use objects for our styles. So I'm going to put my curly braces in there, and I'm going to say, hey, the color is going to be red. And the text decoration is going to be underline. And the cursor is going to be a pointer. Okay, once we get that in, we go, all right, what do we want to happen when that's clicked on? So we say on click, delete, clicked. Okay, now to get our delete clicked, we've got to make our delete clicked. Delete clicked. It's going to be some async function. Hopefully we're getting the hang of this now. Const delete response equals await a fetch to our localhost 3000 and 1. We are going to go to post, and we're going to include the params.id. And the method we're going to use is going to be the delete method. And once we get that response back, we can navigate to our home screen. Now, navigate to is not defined, so we need to go borrow that from post editor. Yes. So we grab our use navigate, we go back to our post.js, and we import that in, use navigate. And then in here, in addition to the params, we need our use navigate.
So is it a hook or is it a built-in thing?
It is a
Use-
hook built into the router.
Ah, gotcha. Thank you.
Good question. Whenever we see use in front of something, it normally means that it's a hook. So we added our use navigate up here to our import. We added our navigate to equals use navigate up at the top of the post. And then down in our delete clicked, we said delete response, include the params ID, and navigate to the home page once it comes back from the front end. If we do all of that right, we also need a new endpoint in the backend. Server.delete is going to still include the posts. It's still going to include the ID. It's going to be an async rec res, and we're going to await the post.delete where the ID in the database matches the param in the ID, the route param in the ID, And then we're gonna res.send back. So to recap, we added our user interface down here with our span tag. We did some styling on it, and we added our on-click delete clicked. In our delete clicked, we did a fetch to the post that includes the ID. That ID is using the method delete. And when that response comes back, navigate them back to the home screen. In order to use our navigate to, we also need to add in our import use navigate from the router. And then we add in our navigate to equals use navigate towards the top. Once we do that, we say, wait a second, we used a method delete here. That doesn't exist yet. So we go back over to our backend. We create our server.delete. It uses the exact same route as our get for the individual ID. But because it's using the method delete, we, instead of doing a .find by primary key, we do a .delete where the ID in the database matches the ID in the route. We then just send something back to the front end to let it know that that delete was successful, that went through. And if all of that works, we go back to the browser. We now have our little delete button. And as soon as we click delete, we get a crash in the back end. Because delete is not a function, is it destroy? Let's try that. No, it's not destroy. I don't know what it is. Sequelize docs.
It's not remove, is it?
Probably. We go to getting started. We look at the model basics. Dropping data types. Deleting an instance. The 8. I don't like that answer. Okay, I guess that's the answer we're using. What we do is we find it first. And then we destroy it. Now let's see if it gets cranky with me. Refresh to clean up the errors, hit the delete button, and it's gone.
Is SQLize like another variant of SQL, like post MySQL and all that stuff, or is it just not?
Think about Sequelize as a framework between SQL and JavaScript. Sequelize is a JavaScript framework that makes it easier for us to access our data in SQL.
Okay, I got that. So that
So
whole
we're still using Postgres, right? Because in db.js, the way we start up Sequelize is by giving it the Postgres URL.
okay. I do get it, so don't worry.
Okay. It was a good question, right? Why do we need Sequelize? Sequelize is the bridge between our Postgres SQL database and the JavaScript that we can write in here. Give everyone just 2 minutes to try and get their delete working. Feel free to raise your hand if you need help. Once you do get that working, we are done with new code for the evening, and we're going to do a trace through of everything. Jennifer.
Hey, I think I'm missing a page.
Missing an entire page?
Well, I just don't have like awesome blog and then something on there. I just have home with the posts.
And if you click the read more, it takes you to it, right? I think you're just missing the header, and that's okay.
Yeah, it takes me to the post. And if I go to the post editor, it takes me to that.
That's all the important stuff. I think the only thing you're missing there is a header,
Okay.
which isn't a big deal. Exona.
So excuse me, is it supposed to delete the post?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's not doing that.
Share your screen.
If I click read more and it's just still showing up.
You need delete in all caps in your front end. Or all lowercase, ironically. You just can't mix the two.
Okay, so let's refresh.
Oh, boo. All right, let me see your back end. You are missing the parentheses after the destroy. Destroy is a function that comes from SQLi, so we need to execute that.
Thank you.
You're all caught up. Good work.
Thank you.
Mine deleted my posts.
Good. That's what it's supposed to do.
Okay. Never mind.
Congratulations.
I just shit myself a little bit, like, oh my God.
Anyone need another minute or help before? Okay. I do think we will get to edit functionality or update functionality. We will probably do that on Wednesday or Thursday. Tomorrow, we're going to dive into authentication. How do we make it so you have to sign in and only signed in people can make a new post? So that's what we're going to tackle tomorrow is we're going to get into user authentication. Once we get that all working, we'll make our update posts working. So we have our full create, read, update, delete flow working. And then you'll have the option to either go work on your capstones or tune in for a more advanced feature flow where we send a forgot password email. So we're going to implement that flow as well if we've got time, either towards the end of the week or Tuesday. But we'll give you guys a option if you want to tap out and go practice some of these full stack concepts in your capstone. You'll have the opportunity to do that probably on Tuesday. So auth tomorrow. Auth may take 2 days. We'll do our update, our blog post, and get the post editor to work with those new IDs. And then we'll do forgot password or the opportunity to just have a free study day on your capstone. Anyone
I'm
need
sorry, you
help?
said we're off tomorrow?
No. We're off next Monday.
I heard the same thing too. I was gonna ask.
I'm sorry. We're doing auth tomorrow. AUTH. Authentication tomorrow. We're not off tomorrow. We're authenticating tomorrow.
Thank you. I got my hopes up there.
Sorry. It's for the longest time I was saying route and route because route can be pronounced as route, and people were so confused. What do you mean it's the route? No, it's the route route.
Tomato, tomato.
Okay. We're gonna do just a summary overview of all of this, and then we get to call it a night. Artrell, go ahead.
I might have missed this step. I'm trying to catch up and trying to find my errors. And I got an error, so it's time for you to drag me.
Share your screen if it still doesn't hate you.
All right. Let the dragging begin.
Okay.
Navigate to. That's where I'm having the issue.
Okay. That's a pretty easy one. We can't just use navigate to, we've got to set up our navigate to. In order to do that, what we do is we import it from the router as use navigate, and then we add in our navigate to. Navigate to using our use navigate. And I'm going to let you switch back to your browser and see if that fixes it.
All right. So then,
Any one of them, just click read more.
okay.
Click your delete button. Gone. Caught up.
Thank you.
No problem. All right, we're going to try and do a full user flow here in 8 minutes. See if we can get it done. So we start all the way up at our app.js. Our app.js says, hey, you're starting on the home page. You're starting with an empty slash. So we go to the home component. Interrupt me at any time if you need a repeat or a loop or a rephrasing, or you want to take a stab at what's going on yourself. So we go to our app.js, we go to our home. In our home, we say, hey, there's a use effect here, but this use effect doesn't run yet. What runs is this show up the home screen and loop over all of the posts in state. Well, there aren't any posts in state because they start out as an empty array. So what do? We say, okay, home has showed up for the first time now. Use effect you can run because this is an empty array. Component showed up for the first time. Okay, now we do a get request because we don't specify a method, so it defaults to get to our backend to get the posts. The posts goes to our backend. It goes to the get endpoint, and it uses the post model to find all the posts in the SQL database and sends them back to the front end. The front end gets them, parses out the JSON, and sets the posts that we're sending back right here into the state. Now that the state is updated, it needs to go through, it loops over them, it maps over each one of them, and it generates out the div with the column and the card. It uses the ID coming back from the database as the unique key, which makes React happy because it knows how to keep track of all these individual unique things that are getting created. It does some date formatting, it posts the title and the tagline. But here's where the magic happens. In this read more button, we modified the link to use the post ID. So when the user clicks on that post ID, when they click that read more button, we go back to app.js. App.js is expecting the ID in the route. Because of that, it shows the post page. The post page has all this stuff up here with a use state. It ignores the use effect for now, and it comes down and says, hey, there isn't a post yet. So say post does not exist or is loading. Okay, that showed up for the first time. Now it goes time for the use effect, something rendered. Okay, what are we doing? We're making an API call. We put that in its own function because use effect doesn't like async directly inside of it. So we put it in its own function. And we say, okay, go make a fetch request to our backend using the params.id. Whoa, 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 where's the params ID coming through? Follow this trace all the way through. On the home page, if we hover over our read more, we can see that that is post ID 3 down in the bottom left, right above my console. If we click on that, that flows through the app.js ID right here, which takes it in to the use params coming from the router and dumps in the params ID. That params ID is coming from 3 in the router, making the API call here and going over to our backend, which is using that ID in as the route param, to pass that into the database. The database then finds that post and sends it back to the front end. The front end then takes that post data, parses it out, and sets it into state. State is updated, so we rerun the render, we rerun the return. We come down here, now there is a post, so we come down here and show all of that post content because it's no longer loading. It's updated in state, we use that data, we show that. We can also do that same loop when they click on the delete button. It uses the params ID again as part of the URL to make the delete work. That delete comes over here, finds that post in the database, destroys it, and sends back a response. That response comes back over here, and we navigate back to the homepage. That's it. I'm done 2 minutes early. It's simple. I don't know why you guys would ever think coding was hard or anything. Schneider, what's up?
I goofed somewhere. My delete isn't populating, and
Okay.
every time I try to run an update, server wants to crash.
Does anyone have questions on the overall flow or need a part or a section repeated or has any code tonight that they wrote and it is working, but they don't really understand why we're doing that? Or Trump?
Can you go back to the post.id again, please? I kind of got lost around there.
Yeah. So lots of IDs to keep track of here. So easy to get lost. And Schneider, I will help you. I just want to recap and make sure everyone's got the knowledge marinating in their heads overnight. Okay, so the ID flows through a lot of different places. The first time we see the ID is in home. So home goes and gets all of the different posts. Once it takes all the posts in, it loops over each individual post and spits out the post ID as part of the link for the read more button.
Can I pause you for 1 second?
You sure can.
So when you showed us on the web page when it said post 3, that's how we knew what post number that was.
Correct. So this is post 4 and this is post 3.
So the ID just represents like whatever post it is.
And we can prove that because in Beekeeper, if we look at our table, we can see 3 is 987 and 4 is ABC.
Okay. All right. So ID kind of just represents all of them.
The individual row in that database.
For the individual row in that. Okay.
So we flow that ID in the read more link from the link itself into the router. The router goes to the post. The post uses that ID from the params and passes it through to the backend. The back end then uses that ID to find the particular post and sends it back to the front end. And then the front end gets that individual post back here and sets that in down here. So
Okay.
the kind of really cool part of all of that is that on the front end, all we're doing is telling it, go get post 3. We don't need to tell it the title, the tagline, the content, the created date, whatever. We just say all of this information is in 3. So when you click on this link and you go to ID 3, that is going to kick off that whole ID passing around to make sure it gets to the back end. The back end uses that unique ID to send back all of the post content, the title, the tagline, the whatever, the content. That is then received here and is able to show up the title, the tagline, and the content, all because the right ID is in the URL. And we can even prove that because if we change that to 4 and hit enter, you notice we'll get our ABC. And if we change it back to 3, we get our 987.
Okay. That makes a lot more sense now.
There are 19 different places we pass the ID, but if you miss that ID in one place, the whole system falls apart. Very powerful concept, right? To say, hey, I could have 1,000 different blog posts, but because I have my posts and my post editor and my homepage all interfacing, all connected into the database, I only need these 3 files. And now you could create 1,000 posts, and I don't need to write a single line of code to support those additional posts.
All right. Thank you, Max.
No problem. Any other questions on concepts before I switch over to helping Schneider?
It's okay. It was a server problem. It's good now.
You fixed it?
Yeah, I didn't define my post again.
Last call for questions for tonight. I know we're already over, but these are really complex, right? A lot of different code switching here. So following this flow through, yeah, being able to write it on your own, you work your way up to that level. But where you're at tonight, sometime between now and tomorrow, just go through that code, right? Generate, that's your homework for tonight, your unofficial homework for tonight. Go through the code, say, do I understand this? Say, could I number this out? If you can number that flow out and go through it, you're good to go. If you can't, go back to the transcript or the last 15 minutes of class tonight, right? That last video segment, and pause me. Go, all right, do I understand that step? Do I understand why we go from here to here? If we do, then you're good to go. If you don't, come to class tomorrow and say, I watched the video, I got stuck here. I don't know how we get from the read more to the individual post. That's your homework for the evening. See you guys tomorrow, and I will stick around for a minute or two just in case any questions pop up. But otherwise, have an excellent evening. I will see you for authentication tomorrow, not off tomorrow, authentication tomorrow.
All right. Toodaloo, everybody.
Have a great night. Kalai, what's up?
Can you check this, Max?
Go for it. Okay, so your server crashed, and that's what we care about. So,
Why is it crashing so many times? Is that common or?
give me remote.
I'm trying to find this further. So,
There we go. What's happening over here is you've got a ton of servers running, and that's causing a lot of issues. So I'm going to close out of all of these.
okay.
and start over fresh. So if we do our npm start now, nope, npm start spelled right. Now you're back up and running. I'm going to start at the home page and we don't have any issues there. I'm going to try and make a new post. And that worked. And if we go to read more, that works. And if we go to delete, that didn't work. So we've got another, it says 404 not found, and it's got this weird params ID in there. What do you want to bet that you didn't use the template literal again?
I'm doing it, but it changed to double quote again. I don't know why. Every time that's what's happening. So I don't know why it changes suddenly to double
Let's
quote.
put that back. And now because it was the double quotes, it crashed the server again. So we've got to go back to your back end, stop it, restart it, and go to the post editor here, go back to the home page. Now we can go down to this one and hit delete. And we still have a 404 not found on delete. That is going to be oh, we had to modify this a little bit. We said const post equals the await find one, and then we did await host dot destroy. You would think delete would work, but they do it that way instead. Delete, and it's gone, and you're good to go.
Thank you, Max. Thank you.
No problem. You're close. It was just that one little. I know we went fast at the end to get the
That I didn't notice because I was trying to fix the other ones. Yeah, thank you.
lots that can go wrong. Totally get it. Any other questions?
Just give me a minute while I pull up my thing that I need help with.
Sure. I'm gonna stop the recording.